And welcome to this week's installment in Westeros.org's discussion of the Game of Thrones television series. This episode we're going to be looking at Kissed by Fire, a very eventful episode, written by Brian Cogman, directed by Alex Graves. Absolutely fantastic. Pretty much from start to finish. We do have one major quibble, but we'll be getting to that one later. But on the whole, this is, to us, easily the best episode of the season. And again, one of the best episodes of the show to date. That's two for two for Brian there. The first season was a difficult season for him, for everyone really. So much to introduce. It was a good episode, but last season's and now his What Is Dead May Never Die and this season's Kissed by Fire are just phenomenal episodes. So Linda will be discussing actually the history this time around. I will discuss the highs. And she will share her thoughts on Blue.
So this episode saw the introduction of, in more detail, of Stannis' wife, Selyse, and also of his daughter, Shireen. And you might be wondering a little bit about their background. Well, Stannis and Selyse don't have a great marriage. That seems pretty clear on the show as well. It's even clearer in the books. Selyse is quite a bitter, difficult woman who has been, and when Melisandre showed up, quite taken in and become a zealot of her religion. Perhaps because her marriage hasn't given her much. It was sort of ruined from the start, according to Stannis anyway, because when they were getting married, Robert broke in the marriage bed for them. Not with Selyse, mind you. She's not supposed to be particularly attractive, but he went for one of the other ladies at the wedding, and you can guess what Stannis thinks about that. It's also a marriage that hasn't been exactly blessed with children. They have a daughter, Shireen. Unfortunately, as you saw, there's something wrong with her face. She suffers from something called grayscale, and this is quite a horrific disease. It's an infectious disease, kind of, I guess you could call it a sort of leprosy. Basically, you grow this sort of scaly thing on your face or on your body, and it can kill you, or generally it will kill you, but it can sort of lay dormant for a long while and just have the disfiguring. So they are playing Shireen as not quite as, she's a very sad, lonely child in the books. They are having her a bit more upbeat. But they have given her one interesting element, and that is that creepy song she was humming and singing, especially creepy over the end credits. And this is actually a song that in the books is sung by her fool, who is about the only one who makes her smile. And he's a weird one. He's actually a former slave from Volantis, so he's tattooed as they do with tattooed in motley on the face. That's perhaps one of the reasons that Shireen relates to him, because she's got this disfigured face and he's got these motley tattoos over his face. He's called Patch Face, actually, and he ended up with them. This goes on a little bit of a tangent, but when Stannis' parents were sent to the Free Cities to seek for a bride for Rhaegar, their ship foundered. And the only survivor actually was Patchface. They were bringing him back from Volantes. And he was believed to have drowned, basically, but he washed up, and since then he's been kind of loopy, singing these odd songs and things. But I guess Stannis keeps him around as a company for Shireen, basically. So we don't think they're going to have Patchface. Shireen is probably having this song, just she's picked it up from somewhere, we're not quite sure how. But that's a little bit about Stannis' family, his rather interesting, somewhat creepy family.
So what can we say about the highs? I mean, there's so much that was just really, really excellent. Many thanks to Brian Cogman for having written this episode so very well. I keep hoping that we'll see him writing more episodes, because this was really, really good. Where to begin? I mean, obviously, the Hound and Beric, that was a fight many people were hoping to see, and I thought it came out really perfectly. The emotion, the tension, the fiery sword, Beric's resurrection. There's really a lot of great stuff. And it's pretty much exactly from the book. Arya cursing at the Hound and all that. Really just fantastic. The one little detail that I wish they had kept is, we know that it's been established that Sandor is terrified of fire. It is a phobia of his. And yet he manages to fight Beric despite it. He does get burned. I mean, I think we have it in the episode. In the book, after he's killed Beric, he's down and sort of cradling his burned arm, and he's almost weeping and crying for help, for someone to help him. He's unmanned at that moment. It's the fire. It was too much. He managed to on adrenaline and terror to push through it, but he kind of collapses a little bit there. That vulnerability would have been interesting to see. As it is, they just have him kind of holding himself a little bit, like, sort of just in front of pain. It's not anything traumatic. But there's so much I could talk about as being really, really good in this episode. So much is well written. So I will just focus on what I think was the thing that most thrilled me, and that was, yet again, Jaime and Brienne. This is their season. This is the season of that story. The bath scene, I'm sure some will just be happy of the butt shot of Nikolai, but it's really the story of Jaime's downfall and the explanation of why he did what he did and why he kept silent about it. Some of the details are a little different, but it's the emotion, it's the core. It's a large part of what defines Jaime, both to the world and to himself. But he was put in this position to do this. And that line, I was waiting and waiting for it, by what right does the wolf have to judge the lion? That's just, it really sells the tension in Jaime, the arrogance, that made him decide, I'm not gonna keep my mouth shut. Let people, if they're gonna judge me, so I'm not gonna take the time to tell them the whole story. But there's also sort of the anguish over being in that position. I don't think he wants to admit it, but he's not necessarily happiest being the King Slayer. And it's a line that he says, I don't know if he says it here or in the books, but it always comes back to the King slaying. It always comes back to Aerys with him, and it defines him so strongly, but it's a bother. Costa Waldau just knocked it out of the park. I know that this was the material he himself was really waiting for to be able to do. There's some other great stuff for Jaime coming up, but this scene, and I would say one other in this season, are really towards the pinnacle of the best Jaime scenes.
So, for the lows, well, let me start with a line from the books, which I don't think is going to show up on the show at all. It's Tyrion speaking to Loras in the third book and asks him for various reasons about his future sort of love life, romantic life, and Loras answers, "When the sun has set, no candle can replace it," referring to Renly, his great love, being dead. Apparently, Loras on the show doesn't have such a big problem getting over Renly's death, and frankly, I find it completely appalling that they're going to take this angle with Loras. Obviously, it seems to be done primarily to, well, get some nudity in, get some male nudity in, fine, I'm not going to object to that, but they could have used another angle. There's also being used to have an opportunity for Loras to be apparently an absolute idiot who's going to spill the marriage plans to, well, the first pretty face who gets him into bed, basically. There are so many things wrong with this. Like Elio, I think this is a really, really strong episode. I think they did a fantastic job with a lot of things, and I'm so pleased. Again, I was very unhappy with the previous season. I'm so pleased that they've been able to recover so many things. But they have made some missteps this season. We've been talking about the whatever you want to call it, character assassination or not of Catelyn, for example, the continued character assassination of Catelyn. And then they add another, definitely what I would call character assassination of Loras. Instead of making him extremely devoted and extremely faithful to Renly's memory, he just goes and humps the first thing that flirts with him. What's wrong with... I mean, it seems a bit... I don't know, it seems almost a little sort of biased because, oh, he's gay, so, you know, everyone knows gay men are, you know, promiscuous, right? So he'll jump whatever. And, you know, I don't know, it's so wrong, it's so wrong. It's not the character. Everything we see from him in the third book, there's, you know, just little glimpses here and there. He is not going to do this sort of thing. In fact, he does something in the third book that shows very clearly that he's been deeply affected by Renly's death. I mean, we didn't really get to see that. That was one of our complaints about the second season, the way they shot Renly's death, the incredible rage that Loras goes into, killing a number of the other of Renly's Kingsguard. We don't see that. We just see him grieving a bit over the body, but there's none of the fury and the sorrow that he actually shows in the book. And they just seem to have toned it down even further by going this way. And yeah, you know, among the, you know, sort of minor, tertiary, secondary characters, you know, Loras is one of my favorites, and it just makes me absolutely furious that they will do this sort of thing, that they'll just throw away something that is such a huge part of his characterization, that he is going to be loyal to Renly's memory. And nope, we need some, I can't say tits and ass, but we need something else on the screen apparently. We need to have our, you know, satisfy our, you know, gay viewers or whatever. I'm sure you could have found some other angle. I'm sure you could have had some, you know, some guy visiting a prostitute or whatever, and I'm sure you could have had this information about the marriage. Why not have Sansa spill it to Shae, and Shae tells Tyrion, and then Tyrion is torn between, you know, doing this thing to Sansa, revealing the plans, and loyalty to his family, and then he ends up revealing it. Much better than completely screwing over the character of Loras. Ugh.
And that's it for this week's discussion of episode 5, Kissed by Fire. Very eventful, really great episode on the whole. The next episode is The Climb, which is a very... It sounds like it's going to be very literal in one sense, as we see what Tormund and the wildlings are doing with Jon as they scale the wall. And probably metaphorical. There is, if some of you will recall, there was a teaser a while back from a show in which was just Aidan Gillen narrating this idea that chaos is a ladder and there's only the climb up it towards one's goals. So it'll be interesting to see how the Littlefinger aspect of this plays out, if it is in fact involved in this episode. Till then, see you next week.